Hello, Clement229 here with another review for Rush Hour the TV series, this time episode 13, the season finale. So let's just get right into it and talk about the plot. The plot of this is basically the finale to the storyline had been building up throughout the season involving the triads. So we finally get the return of Kim, Lee's sister. We get, the dragon comes in and all that stuff comes in. We finally get the payoff for the build-up throughout the season. And I quite liked it. It's actually not my favorite plot in the season. Surprisingly enough, I was kind of expecting to like it a little bit more than I did. But hey, honestly, I'm just glad that the show ended on a decent note. The plot actually, it brings back several characters we had seen previously, especially some of the, federal agents and stuff that we saw in, I think it was the tail end of one episode, like episode, was it 7 or 8? Can't really remember, but it was before the hiatus. And we see them come back for a bit, so that's the payoff for that. And we actually get, Lee ultimately confronting Kim and stuff, and that stuff is great. The one thing I actually have to kind of criticize overall with this has nothing really to do with the episode in and of itself, and more the fact that I kind of feel like they didn't build up enough. And it's not bad. And I want to say this, I want to make this very clear. I'm not saying this because I was like, why didn't they do this? It's more of a, this would have been better if. And we had, I think, 1, 2, 3 episodes, 3 maybe 4 episodes over the course of the season that actually built up to the season finale, and I kind of feel like there probably should have been more involving with the triads. As much as I enjoyed some of the more segmented and individual episodes, I would have been very much okay with having some of those cut and putting in more episodes and building up to the triads, especially since I had actually forgotten about this. The whole thing of Lee, investigating into the triads in America, I forgot that was actually something that they were implying has been going on this entire time, and I'm just a little disappointed that we've only been getting mentions for the most part. Episode 5 is so far the only episode besides the season finale that actually focused... No. It was episode 5 and then I think another episode. But like 2 episodes that actually focused on the triads. And leading up to it, the lead up is not as good as it really should have been. So I actually forgot when it shows Lee and Carter, listening to stuff like while they're investigating. I was like, oh wait, yeah. They were supposed to be doing that. They made a big deal about Lee and Carter teaming up, and really didn't. Now, I'll actually end up saving more of that for when I actually get around to doing a full season review where I look at the entire season. I should probably just stick to just talking about the finale. But overall, yeah, the finale, it deals with it, and it kind of wraps up that plot arc, or that was initially started. And, saying that there's probably, and, of course, there's going to be more that would loom on the horizon if we got a second season, but alas, we're not getting a second season, so that's not going to happen. But for just having the season be the season, it did wrap it up, and it basically gave us a little bit of hints on bigger stories. So ultimately, one of the biggest problems is that it got canceled. Oops. Is that it got canceled. And it's the same issue with stuff like Firefly, and it's like, oh, well, sorry, we just kind of cut off. But really, the plot is decent. It's not my favorite plot. I'm a little disappointed that it's not my favorite plot in the entire series, given that I usually really always look forward to really good season finales. But believe me, I've seen much worse season finales. So I think we should be thankful that they gave us a good season finale that wrapped up the storyline. As far as the humor goes, of course, like last week, this is lighter on humor, and I think that's to be expected, even of an action comedy in the season finale. Even Psych, when they did season finales, they were very much lighter on humor than the shows typically are, and usually something really serious is happening. So in a show like this, that is more serious overall than that, yeah, I think it's understandable that they had minimal humor, but they did manage to fit in some good humor. One of my favorite moments in the episode was it looked like it could have been pulled straight out of, the movies. It's this one henchman, he's just kind of sitting there, he's smoking, or he gets a cigarette, puts it in his mouth, and then you see Lee and Carter just put a lighter next to him, and he's like, oh, okay, and they just, they deck the guy. And I was watching that, and I actually paused it because I was laughing. I was just thinking, like, that is something that would have been done in the movies. And I always love those moments in the show when I'm just like, that looks like something that they would have pulled straight from a movie. But they actually came up with that themselves. So I did like that. And we had Gerald in, and kind of sad that Gerald, for the last couple episodes, had a fairly minimal role. But, when things are getting serious, you can't keep shoving in more humor than there really needs to be. So I think that's fair enough to say that even if this episode wasn't as funny, it was more plot focused, so I understand that. The action was, again, I actually have to say it's more like last week's episode, is that it feels a bit of a mixed bag, and there were some good stuff and then some stuff, and overall I don't think the fight scenes lasted as long as they really should have. I mean, this is the season finale. Even if they thought they were going to get a second season, I thought they should have gone out with a bigger bang. Episode 11 had one of the best fight scenes in the show. That was the most rush hour, and then the season finale, it's like, it has some good stuff, don't get me wrong. In fact, we actually get to see Lee's sister using a whip weapon and using it in a fight, which I thought was interesting because you really don't see that kind of weapon used a lot in movies and TV shows. We also got to see Lee's sword fight. That was definitely awesome. But really, the action wasn't as spectacular. It was very much more plot focused. In fact, I have to say there's a lot of similarities between this and last week's episode, which is a little disappointing because I really wanted there to be a lot more action in this episode. I wanted big explosions. I mean, there is some action, but when it comes to Lee and Carter getting in the action, it wasn't as big and grand as I was hoping from a season finale. But like I said, we've gotten worse. I've seen much worse season finales. So the fact that we got a good one, I'm just still okay with. Now, as far as the characters go, I actually have to say, I'm glad that we got to see Lee's sister again. We finally got to see the plot line that has been started back in the pilot has finally reached its conclusion and I won't spoil it, but I'm just glad to see that finally wrapped up and we're not squeezing extra drama out of it. I do have to say though that the ending actually made me think of it mixes elements of the ending of Rush Hour 1 and Rush Hour 2. I won't spoil the details of it, and I'll be talking about details more when it comes to my the season review. The ending, like the main bad guy, does end up reminding me a little bit more of Ricky Tan, though he doesn't get kicked out of a building, which I'm a little disappointed in, to be honest. It's sort of a tradition to kick the main bad guys out of, and have them fall to their deaths, in Rush Hour, but I can live without it. And then in the end, Lee and Carter are talking about the possibility of going to Hong Kong, and I'm like, okay, it's like, I remember, because that's basically how Rush Hour 1 ended, except they were in an airport, which is, again, it's sort of a tradition. But yeah, I'm guessing that if they were going to do a second season, that they might end up going the Rush Hour 2 route and having them go to China. And I'm a little disappointed that we're not going to get anything on that. I was actually a little glad to see characters like Dee Dee and douchebag with mustache involved, as well as the captain. Captain Cole does do stuff in the episode, and she's part of the plot. overall, while I wouldn't actually count this as the best episode in the series, I actually do think that episodes like 4 and 5 are still the high point of the season. I still consider this to be a solid season finale. It wraps up the plot lines, even if it isn't as grand as I really would have hoped. So much disappointment in the fact that it got canceled, and the fact that they could, it could have improved on all this stuff in a second season. And I always hate it when that happens. When you see something, you're like, yeah, it wasn't as good as it could be, but it could be better. And then it gets axed, and you're just sitting there with the first season. And I especially would have loved to see them take, a Rush Hour 2 approach from going to China and, actually doing stuff there and dealing with triads there. Rush Hour 2 took the formula from Rush Hour 1 and improved on it in every single way. And I have no doubt that, given what we've seen of the good stuff we've seen in Rush Hour, Season 1, that a Season 2 would have been good. But I'll actually talk more in detail about that and how I feel about what would have been done in a second season when I get around to doing the season review. I'll basically go back and rewatch the season and basically say how I feel about things having seen the whole thing. But, well, that's it. Unless a miracle occurs and another network picks up the series, or someone like Netflix or Hulu does, we're not getting another season of Rush Hour, and that is one of the biggest disappointments. I was skeptical going into this show, but honestly, it ended up impressing me, and it's going down as one of the series that I really, really enjoyed that got cut off way too soon. But if you do want to support the show, you can buy it on Amazon, and I bought it on Amazon. That's actually where I've been watching it, especially now since the Olympics are going on. And then I can't watch the TV, but I've been watching that, and I do recommend supporting the show on the off chance that someone does catch attention to this. And I do think that if they release DVDs and Blu-rays, I do think if you want to support the show, you should buy them. Just on the off chance that someone might pick up the show. But anyway, thank you for watching this review, and thank you if you've been sticking through this and watching these reviews with me as I watch the show. Thank you so much for your support.